back, it's Jarvis, and I'm here with another EDH Deck Tech. For this week's EDH Deck Tech, I am doing Jodah the Unifier. We're doing it as an Artisan build. In case you don't know what Artisan is, you can only use commons and uncommons. But before we get into the deck, I just want to remind you to please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, you can go and follow me on all my socials by following the link tree in the Discord in the description below, as well as join my Discord by following the link in the description below. Traditionally, Artisan decks, even the commander has to be an uncommon, but we're going to go and break that rule a little bit by going and using Jodah. Jodah is a Wooburg commander, a legendary creature, human wizard, that it is a 5/5. And legendary creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. And whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Essentially, Jodah cascades. The reason why we're building this using the Artisan rules, save Jodah, is because a lot of times Jodah decks get to be very powerful and get out of control. So I was like, why not go and limit myself to commons and uncommons? That way, it lowers the power level of the deck. It might make it a little bit nicer for other people to play along with. So let's get into it. Legend, wait for it, Barry Stinston. These are just going to be all the legendary creatures and planeswalkers we put in the deck. We do not have any other legendary spells or permanents. Amber Gristle Omal, 3 and a red, haste. And whenever it attacks, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw a card for each player being attacked. Annexed Harden in the Forge, 1 red. Devotion equal to red, not going to be that important here. But whenever it or another non-token creature you control dies, it gets replaced with a 1/1 red satyr creature that can't block. And if the creature had 4 or power 4 or greater, you get to create 2 satyrs instead. Angrath, Captain of Chaos, 2 Rakdos. Creatures you control have Menace. And -2 Amass 2. Really don't care about the minus ability. It's more to go and give all your creatures Menace. Arvad the Cursed, 3 white/black. Death Touch, Lifelink, and other legendary creatures you control get +2/+2, which is all of our creatures. Balmor, Battle Mage Captain, blue/red, flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+0, and the important part, gain trample until end of turn. Bortuk Bone Rattle, 4 black/red, has the domain ability, which domain, it is based off your basic land types, and even though we are playing only commons and uncommons, a good way to get around this is in Dominaria United, they went and introduced a bunch of basic lands that came in tapped with the basic land types, as well as the snow lands from Kaldheim that had the basic land types. But when Bortuk Bone Rattle enters the battlefield, if you cast it, choose a target creature card in your graveyard. Return that card to the battlefield if its mana value is less than or equal to the number of basic land types among lands you control. Otherwise, put it into your hand. So a lot of the times, we should have all 5 land types, so we should be able to get our 5 drops, which most of our creatures are 5 mana or less. Ellis Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim, white/black, Death Touch. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Garna, Bloodfist of Keld, 1 black/red. Whenever another creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Garna, the Blood Flame, 3 black/red, has flash, and when it enters the battlefield, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn. And important part here, other creatures you control have haste. Gretchen Titchwillow, green/blue, and has the activated ability of 2 green/blue, draw a card, and you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So card draw and ramp. Grumgully the Generous, 1 red/green. Each other non-human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Kagha, Shadow Arc Druid, 2 black/green. Whenever it attacks, it gains Death Touch until end of turn, and you mill 2. And once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a permanent spell from among cards in your graveyard that were put there from your library this turn. Kalane, Reclusive Painter, black, red. When it enters, you create a treasure token, and other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each mana from a treasure spent to cast them. This is more just because you get to go and replace half the cost of Kalane. And it gives you something to go and cascade into. Carter, Doom Scourge, 2 black, red. When it enters the battlefield, until your next turn, creatures you control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able, so it goads everything. And whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. Kaya, Bane of the Dead, 3 Orzhov, Orzhov, Orzhov. Your opponents and permanents your opponents control with hexproof can be the target of spells and abilities that you control as though they didn't have hexproof. So it gets around like Swiftfoot Boots and other hexproof effects, but it also acts as removal because the -3 is to exile target creature. Kedis, Emberclaw Familiar, 1 red. Whenever a commander you control deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. It is very possible that Jodah could be swinging in for 10, 15, even 20 damage. Why not go and deal that much damage to everyone else? Killian, Ink Duelist, white, black. Lifelink, Menace, and spells you cast that target a creature cost 2 less to cast. Lagomos, Hand of Hatred, white, 1 black, red. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Sacrifice at the beginning of next end step, and then you can tap and search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Activate only if 5 or more creatures died this turn. Lagrella, the Magpie, green, white, blue. When it enters the battlefield, exile any number of other target creatures controlled by different players until it leaves the battlefield. When an exile card enters the battlefield under your control this way, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So, removal. Mahadi, Emporium Master, 1 black, red. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn. Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator, 2 and a blue, flying. Whenever 1 or more pirates you control deals damage to your opponents, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. And it has partner, even though that doesn't matter. Morite of the Frost, 2 green, blue, blue. Changeling. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a permanent you control, except it's legendary and snow in addition to its other types. And if it's a creature, it enters with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it and has Changeling. So, just if you want, a second Soul Ring or a second Rhystic Study, you could go and get that. Nael, Avizoa Aeronaut, 2 green, blue, flying, also has domain. But its domain is whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. Put up to 1 of them on top of your library, and the rest on the bottom in a random order. Then if there are 5 basic land types among lands you control, draw a card. Yet again, you should be able to reliably trigger this. Quasar, Augur of Agonies, 1 white, blue, black. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Raph Capuchin, Ship's Mage, 2 white, blue, flash, flying, and it gives your historic spells, which legendary spells are historic, flash. Rograk, Son of Roga, 0 mana, but it is red in a color identity, has First Strike, Menace, and Trample. Samut, Tyrant Smasher, 2 Gruul, Gruul. Creatures control of haste, which is the important ability. The minus doesn't matter. Sir Conrad the Grim, 3 black, black, my favorite commander of all time. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent, and for 1 and a black, each opponent mills 1. Tatiova, Benthic Druid, 3 green, blue. Has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Baconia, Drow Apostate, 2 and a black. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, return a creature card at random from your graveyard to your hand. And finally, Zamone, Quandrix Prodigy. A green and a blue. Has the ability for 1 and tapping it to put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. And for 4 and tapping it, drawing a card. And if you control 8 or more lands, you draw 2 cards instead. So ramp and card draw on the same body. Next, let's get into our ramp. We're going to be casting quite a few creatures, and we want to be able to ramp and get the type of mana, color mana that we need. So we have Arcane Signet. Farseek is 1 and a green and lets you search for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain. Belwar Stone. Growth Spiral is green and a blue. Draw a card. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Nature's Lore is 1 and a green. You could search for a forest card. Relic of Legends, probably the most important mana rock that you could have for a deck like this. It's 3 generic mana. It taps for 1 mana of any color, but you can tap an untapped legendary creature you control and add a mana of any color. So all those legendary creatures you're putting out, which we have a total of 28 in the deck, then become mana dorks. Soul Ring. 3 visits is 1 and a green. Search your library for a forest card. And now we get to our good stuff. This is where we put our card draw. This is where we put our interaction. This is where we put things that don't fit in the other categories. Aetherize is 3 and a blue. Return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. We are playing this because you do not get board wipes at common and uncommon levels unless they are just like -3/-3 or deal 4 damage or 5 damage to all creatures. Arcane Denial, 1 and a blue. Counter spell. But at the spell, the person's spell that you countered gets to draw 2 cards at the next upkeep, and you get to draw 1. Balagad Recovery, 2 and a green. Return target card from graveyard to your hand. It has the flip side of being a land of Balagad Sanctuary. Beast Within, 2 and a green. Destroy target permanent. Its control creates a 3/3 green beast. Despark is a white and a black and exiles target permanent with mana value 4 or greater. Dovin's Veto is a white and a blue. It can't be countered, but it counters target non-creature spell. Garruk's Uprising, 2 and a green. This is also very important to the deck. When it enters the battlefield, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you draw a card. Creatures you control have trample. And whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. If you have Jodah out, and once you get 2 or 3 other creatures out, all your creatures entering have power 4 or greater, and then they have trample, making it they can go and put some big beats down. Generous Gift is 2 and a white. It does the same thing that Beast Within does, it's just color shifted. Jawari Disruption, 1 and a blue. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. Flip side is Jawari Ruins, which is a blue land. Lightning Greaves, to protect your commander most often. Mystic Remora is a single blue, and even though it is now a rare in Dominaria Remastered, it was originally a common. And it has a cumulative upkeep of 1, and whenever target opponent successfully casts a non-creature spell, you may draw a card. That player may pay 4 to counter this effect. Path to Exile. Ristic Study was originally a common in Prophecy, even though now I believe in most reprintings it is being shown as a rare. And by most reprintings, I think the only reprint it has is in Jumpstart. But whenever an opponent, recent reprint, other than where it was kept at the common level, but whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may draw a card unless the player pays 1. Rhythm of the Wild, 1 red-green, makes it so your creature spells can't be countered, and non-token creatures you control have Riot, meaning they can either enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter or haste. Soul Guide Lantern, for 1 mana, when it enters, exile target card from a graveyard, or sacrifice it and exile each opponent's graveyard, or pay 1 and sacrifice it and draw a card. Swiftfoot Boots, more protection for your commander. Swords to Plowshare is just the 1 mana exile effect. Time of Need is a 1 and a green sorcery where you get to search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. So you can get any of your legendary creatures for any of the occasions that might pop up during the game. And Vandal Blast is a single red, destroy target artifact or overload it to destroy all artifacts. So, there you have it, an Artisan Jodah the Unifier deck. What cards did you like in here? What cards didn't you like? What would you put in the deck? Keep in mind, keep it with those Artisan rules. But I just want to remind everyone, please like, comment, and subscribe. and go and follow that link tree to go and follow me on the rest of my socials. Until next time, everyone, have a good one.